You may think this is Kerbin. It's not. It's Flusion.
On this windswept parallel planet, a pauper site of buildings and suspiciously tilted antenna mark the current home of the Flusion Expeditionary colony, brought to you by Space Agency Industries, pioneers of progress and occasional plummet. In the formative years of the Flusion Expeditionary colony, new parts sourced from freshly minted modifications and the unchecked optimism of theoretical science offered the administrator a bold frontier to gooify the willing and occasionally the unwitting. Each component, tested only in the vacuum of ambition, paved the way for discoveries that were often profound, occasionally productive, and reliably sticky. The Flusion Expeditionary colony, boldly touching down upon a world hauntingly familiar and eerily uncharted, with contours like Kerbin, but secrets all its own. Flusion presents our Flusionauts with both advantages and anomalies. Here, space is not a solved equation, it is a wild frontier. With the administrator now armed to the teeth in modded marvels, the mission has never been more flexible nor more dangerously uncertain. There is no Delta V cheat sheet, no magic numbers etched in the stars. On Flusion, flight is art, engineering is hope, and every launch is a test of nerves and Newtonian bravado. For this brave colony of Flusion's, progress is forged in trial and sometimes in catastrophic error. But one thing remains certain: this is the Flusion age, and it's only just lifting off. Flusion, she gives with one hand and takes with the other. Thanks to a generous equatorial spin, our launches from mission control benefit from a cosmic slingshot, a smooth ascent, a whisper of effort against the vacuum's door. And ripping off the Flusion tourists is entirely profitable. But within her atmosphere, a different tale entirely. The skies above Flusion are a patchwork of invisible forces, gravitational quirks and magnetic bends that seem almost alive. The further our brave test pilots roam from the control center, the more they flirt with these unseen hands. Aircraft packages, rigorously tested, masterfully assembled, have been known to lift off with promise, only to tumble earthward in a fury of sparks and regret. The cause, still uncertain. The effect, spectacular. Here, every flight is a duel, not just with physics, but with Flusion herself. In the early months of Flusion's atmospheric awakening, the skies above weren't just a frontier, they were a proving ground. Contracts floated in like morning mist, each one a tantalizing offer, 100% returns in science, reputation, and the ever-elusive funds. For the administrator, it was a needed return on constricting space contracts and early tech tree advancements. So it was mostly the era of fixed wings and variable fortunes. Newly installed modules and parts, still smelling of fresh code, favored the lift of aircraft over the push of rockets. And Bill's hangars roared to life, jetliners, experimental delta wings, and even a flying truck, all cobbled together by green fingers and ambition. What they lacked in symmetry, they made up for in fuel tanks and hope. The skies of Flusion responded in kind, temperamental, twisting, indifferent to balance or logic. Yet still, the flights launched, one by one, over and over. Airborne contracts and funds on a collision course with physics and fate. And the administrator, watching it all from a flickering monitor, in mission control, logging failures, counting Flusions, and preparing for the next inevitable test of lift, thrust, and gravity's cruel patience, because in this system, contracts were king and flight was faith, and had been stealing from an unfulfilled Panther engine contract that still had a year to expire yet. As aircraft prowled the low skies of Flusion, another avenue of progress was unfolding. Fueled not by courage or curiosity, but by the timeless motivator of all things orbital: profit. The limited capacity of early rocket fuel tanks and basic flight computers was no match for the cunning of the administrator, who discovered a gold mine in the stars, or rather, just shy of them. Suborbital hops and shallow orbits became the stuff of legends, or at least well-paying vacation packages. Tourists, wide-eyed and thrill-thirsty, lined up by the dozens, handing over funds in exchange for 37 seconds of weightlessness and a blurry view of their home continent, easy to lift, easy to drop, and easier still to cash in. But the administrator saw further. Fuel costs, launch platforms, and recovery expenses, they were mere variables in a grander equation, one solved by an elegant answer: reuse. By refining booster recovery and reducing waste, an entire vehicle, launch pad to capsule, could be recycled like yesterday's snack wrappers. Thus, in an unpressurized hangar with wiring held together by hope and modular struts, a new legend was born: the Flusion Space Bus 1000, a singular elongated vehicle of pure efficiency. 9 tourists crammed into every corner, with one lucky soul seated in a decorative, fully computerized cockpit with no buttons, no levers, just blinking lights and placebo authority. No pilot required, no comfort guaranteed, just guaranteed profits. It soared, it returned, it did it again. Orbit by numbers, tourism by algorithm, and every badge-wearing Flusionaut who rode it home did so to the sound of thrusters, applause, and the soft hum of the administrator's funding meter ticking ever upward. They came for the stars. They left with a souvenir photo and a mandatory waiver: welcome aboard the space bus. Sona, Flusion's mother planet, a ringed gas giant of unspeakable majesty and gravitational authority. From the surface of Flusion, it rises not like a star, but like a presence, a pale blue sentinel, dominating the horizon with an unblinking eye of swirled storms and distant mystery. Its rings, thin as whispers, cut the night sky with surgical precision, sometimes a crown, sometimes a blade. They dance above the Flusion skyline, shifting from pale silver to obsidian shadows depending on the angle of the rising sun. At times, Sona shares the sky with its star, a twin marvel to bask in, and at others, it dares to stand against it, casting Flusion into a ghostly twilight that lasts for days. In that silence, the Flusians learned reverence. They did not fear Sona, they admired it. They named holidays after its crossings, they built telescopes to chase its moods, and they listened when it whispered through the tides and the magnetic drift. Flusion is not alone. Its sky family extends to Muno, the closest wanderer of Sonar, Eli, a brown, rocky tempest, Seran with its jagged surface of ice, and Aptur, the odd child, a stray moonlet that lingers in Flusion's wake like a lost thought in a crowded room. So when a contract came through, routine at first glance, to explore Sona, the gears began to turn. This was no mere expedition. It was a journey toward the celestial mother, toward answers, toward danger, toward profit.